Good morning, everybody. I did name my talk "The Going with the Flow." I'm slightly unfortunate considering how the weather has been between wind and water, but maybe it's a good mantra for life. I work with a consultant who has spent his life saying we just have to go with the flow. And in life, I think applying the rule of going with the flow. But in that, I also would like to refer to a couple of things which have been questions earlier on. And just to recap, we've seen so many pictures of lungs. But again, just to recap, those lovely little air bubbles, those balloons at the end, very bottom, that make up your complete lung, are those tiny ones here to the right. And they are tiny. But as you can see, you may get a little light here, you may not. As you can see, if you start getting scar tissue here, and all of this blood supply is running around the outside of what look like the ends of cauliflowers, and the oxygen comes in through here, it can't really get across into the blood. And that was the picture that you saw, the whole idea that you cannot get transference into your lungs as a disease that is scarring progresses. And that means that you can find yourself, yes, feeling it's more difficult to breathe, but you'll also find yourself more breathless. Now, there's your little tiny pictures, the nice lovely little, as I say, cauliflower end over here on the far side, and then damaged as it would be here by the pulmonary fibrosis. You'll find the scarring. One, you can get this difficulty with oxygen, and most people describe it. It's almost like difficult breathing, yes, it's the stiffness, but the other symptom they will describe as being breathless. And one man just said to me, it feels like my lungs are vacuum packed. I just seem to be doing all the activity, all the actions, but I'm actually getting no bang for my buck. As I breathe in, I'm not getting any relief, and I'm getting no oxygen in. And he had a very good suss on exactly what was going on. Those lovely spongy, as I say, viable lungs on the far side there have become just too difficult to manage. And with shortness of breath, we all kind of get to the stage of kind of saying, well, the less I do, the less breathless I get. And the less you do, as a family member will say, the less frightened I get watching you getting breathless. And that is one of the things with shortness of breath. It doesn't just frighten you, it doesn't just worry you, it scares everybody else around you. And every time you go out with the group, be it the book group, the rowing group, the golfers or anything else, everybody else is doing this little sideways look saying, God, he's very breathless, she's very breathless today. And they all kind of think, oh Lord, she frightens the life out of me, she does. And then she gets a fit of coughing and it gets even more breathless. So the whole idea is, we need to look today maybe how we're going to manage that. There is a symptom that comes, I always feel, which is kind of understated and underrated with pulmonary fibrosis, and it's fatigue. It's this absolute and utter, I really go to bed and I wake up the next morning and I feel like no better. Somebody's murdered me. My mother used to say this years ago, and we all laughed. I am my mother now. But I think with pulmonary fibrosis, this is multiplied. And it comes at certain stages that it actually puts you off doing things. Then you stop doing things, your shortness of breath puts you off doing things, and then basically you become more unfit, more challenged, more frightened, and you're unable to do what was your normal daily life. Getting washed, getting dressed, planning to go places, setting times, dates, appointments. And as I say, any of those things, family dues, the normal activity, work, all of the things were part of what are called normal life to everybody. So you actually end up with what I would call reduced quality of life. And quality of life is a very in phrase, but basically we all know what it means. It means that you can't go do your shopping in comfort. It means you can't go out and join your group or your family in whatever those activities may be. Or say, am I going on holidays? I wouldn't be up to it. I wouldn't be up to going down to wherever it is for the weekend. So we were referring there, and I wasn't going to, as I normally do, wither and wither and wither on about exercise, exercise and exercise. I decided let's also apply the other side, from the other side of the fence, which is why don't we? And what stops you when you have fibrosis from exercising? And as we referred to earlier there, your muscles are like an engine. They're like tuned, the Formula One car is tuned within an inch of its life. Every second computerized, diagnosed and everything else. The better it's tuned, the faster it'll go, and the better any of our cars will go if we have a properly tuned engine. We all know the ad. The ad is the car flies through Death Valley or wherever it is, and the little writing at the very bottom says it'll go at 100 and something miles per gallon if you've got a tailwind downhill in an altitude of whatever and you only drive at a certain speed. Okay, well, you know all these little bits, but the fact is that a well-tuned engine will get you a good result when it comes to your fuel. Now, the same thing is, the fitter your muscles are, the better result you will get. It will not make a difference, as we just said already, to the condition of your lungs. But what you're doing is managing a symptom situation. And with any condition, you treat the condition, but sometimes you must also treat the symptoms. Okay, and I think lung fibrosis is one of those things. You have to take each of the symptoms, whichever ones, and they're not the same for everybody. They certainly aren't the same. Some people find it's the fatigue, some people find it's the breathlessness. Some people find it's the fact that they get, as we refer to, exacerbations and they never come back to their normal level of activity. So all of these different symptoms need to be addressed. So today you'd probably find, well, that's something I needed to know about and that's something I don't need to know about, but I really couldn't leave without talking about oxygen for starters. Now, for starters, ILFA have a huge library of available things that are going to support you and your family regarding looking at activity at any level of your condition. Okay, we have our 2,000 steps, which is not just for the fellow who says, oh, I could do 2,000 steps. It's for the person who says, oh, I couldn't do 2,000 steps. That comes with your pedometer, encouragement. Unfortunately, not a noise that shouts down the hallway every day, have you gone for your walk? But a few more other prompts. There's a DVD that you can do your exercises and follow through with managing your breathlessness and other symptoms that will be and are with your condition. Exercise bikes. They will not be giving them out, but they can tell you where to get them and how to get them. Pedals, again, they will tell you where you can find them. All of these are very inexpensive remedies for exercise. It is my favourite picture, but I'm actually going to get a dog that's called 10 miles instead of just 5 miles. All right. But the fact is, exercise, as we said earlier, is not going to change the lung condition, but it will tune your engine. It will tune your body, and it can take any form. It need not be walking 5 miles a day. It may be that you may only manage so many steps a day. It may be for some, and those who are obviously are not here, for some it may only be that they manage those steps around the house. But it also means that in this weather and in this winter that we've had so far, you need to look at options on staying well, staying active and staying fit. I keep on saying, I know it's wet. I will not mention the wind, but I know it's wet, but nobody died of getting wet, except they take to the local establishment, hostelry, sit there and steam dry. If you go out for a walk, come back damp, hang up your damp coat and take your damp shoes off, nothing is going to happen to you. Otherwise we would be using JCBs to clear everything from Lansdowne Road to Crow Park of dead bodies scattered all over golf courses, racetracks that never open again because we wouldn't know what to do with the bodies. So nobody died of getting wet, so let's not talk about but it rains. Okay, after that we just have to gird our loins, head out within, as I say, safety and sense. And I know it looks dreadful out there, but I just looked out there as I was coming in, looked at the swans and looked at the colour of the trees, and would it not do your head good to brighten you when you look out of there and take appreciation of the fact that it may be wet, but it is still beautiful out there. So exercise is, and I will constantly tell you, and there's on the website for the Lung Fibrosis Association, and at that stand there are a number of items that will support you towards exercise. But the bigger question is, why don't you exercise? What's stopping you? Apart from bone laziness on most of our parts, the weather if we want to, the fact that we'll do it tomorrow on the Scarlett O'Hara affair. But what is it that's actually stopping us all from doing some exercise when we have something that is creating a problem to us? And what is the problem? Well, there's kind of the old sort of elephant in the room. when it comes to lung fibrosis. And it can be a progressive situation. And I did hear one man asking about oxygen there, which I will refer to later. But it's more like we're looking for excuses not to exercise. Well, if I don't do the exercise, it won't do that much harm. And if I don't use my oxygen, it won't do that much harm, but it would mean I won't be able to do exercise. So the big elephant in this hill and that great big boulder is actually breathlessness at whatever level we get it at. And we need to learn how to manage it. And we need to know that getting breathless is not just rare to you. Every single one of us get breathless. It's just where along the scale we actually get breathless. Is it after we climb 4 or 5 flights of stairs? Is it just the one flight at home? Is it actually just getting out of the chair and heading out to the kitchen to make a cup of tea? Or worse, which I think is really the one that most patients dread, is getting up in the morning, getting washed and getting dressed and getting themselves ready to do anything knocks the complete stuffing out of them. So we need to sit back and say, right, what's out there that you can do that may help you to manage this breathlessness, and then get on with the rest of it. Because life happens when you're making plans. So we need to discuss, get that sorted, and then get on with it. So we need to gather a few things that are going to move this boulder, breathlessness, out of the way. And managing your breathlessness, we're going to look at 2 or 3 things. We're going to look at the stall technique. Some of you are aware of it, some of you are going, what? And as I say, we're going to run through how it manages. Stall technique is for not just the person who gets breathless, but it's for those around them that get breathless. We also are going to look about fans, okay? And the men are going, Lord, dude, it's getting worse. And then we're going to look at a drug that is as old as time itself, okay? So we've got a couple of things there. The exercise I have referred to. And if anybody leaves here without taking something from that stand down there about exercise, there will be questions asked. Okay? We will now go on and have a look at stall. Stall is here on the right. And we have a word in Ireland, we never didn't want to say stop, but it's kind of stall a minute. Just stall there and we'll just hang on a tick. So stall basically is a very simple breathing technique. Okay? And we all recognise these basic facts. Breathlessness causes fear and anxiety, not just for the person who's breathless, but for everybody else who's looking at them. Here he goes again. He's off there doing that. Look, you see when he gets so breathless? Scares the life out of me. So breathlessness affects everybody. If you experience breathlessness, you're going to try out this technique, okay? You're going to also show this technique to anybody who's around you. Now, carer may not be the word. It may be the guys around you, maybe the fellas you go to the football match with, it may be the ladies you go off shopping with, or whatever else it is, or when you go down to the supermarket. Just so they know that you've got a plan, and so they know there's a plan. This little card is the size of a credit card, and they are down there. And this is how it goes. The stall stands for stop. You get very breathless, stop. Just stop. Now, many people say, oh, I do. Men have become the best window shoppers known. I've seen women stare into car shops, into motors, and that's probably a very sexist comment. They're probably looking for something for the car. But at the same time, they just kind of plan their walk where they can stop and have a little wander around and not look weird. Because this world is a very unforgiving world for doing things like that. So you just stop. Forget about what anybody else thinks. Stop what you're doing. Try, and I do say to you try, because everybody sort of runs around you shouting, oh, calm down. Now just calm down. And by the time they say it for the 3rd time, if you had the energy, you'd like to give them a box. But the problem is, you're too busy trying to get yourself organised. So just try to stay calm. If you're on oxygen, and you've already discussed this with whoever's put you on oxygen, turn it up to manage the situation. And again, we'll talk about this in a moment. Assume a comfortable position. Now, as physios, we're very good at showing people how to prop themselves on walls and hang themselves over banisters, etc. Find whichever one is the one you find suits you in the surroundings you're in at the time, to just gather yourself. If you find yourself grabbing onto things, try to let that relax and sit or lay against something. But you do need to just have little plans of action in your head for wherever you might be. Now, let your imagination take you to a safe place, and there's a few people here saying, you're going, oh Lord, she's going to do mantras and everything else. Basically what I say to patients, and I say it in 2 seconds flat, close your eyes. Where's your favourite place? And within 2 seconds, somebody said to me, oh, one man said to me, actually a place I never heard of, Calais Plage down in the south of France. 2 seconds he came out with it. And I said, right, close your eyes, go to Calais Plage. And a minute I said to him, so what do you see? And he said, oh, there's the beach across the road, and there's this, and there's that, and there's a little restaurant. And immediately he has recentered his mind on something else. And it just means that you're not just all pervasively thinking about this breathing and the noise of it and everybody looking at you and everything else like that. So therefore, it is actually called visual imagery. It's a very posh name. I used to just thought it was daydreaming, but it actually is a whole much more important and much more intricate system. But for a few moments, just close your eyes and go somewhere. It may be that big leather chair at home that's full of cracks and creaky bits that you watch the TV, and you close your eyes and look around the room of all the familiar things you see. Don't necessarily try to think about blowing bubbles and clouds in the air or anything else like that. Something you're familiar with that you can immediately connect with. Just organize yourself, and as I say, just wait till your breathing settles down. Now, like all things, if it doesn't settle down and it's becoming more and more frequent, it's time to start talking to your medic. All right. This little card, as I say to you, can slip into your wallet. You can have it and you can use it, but the most important thing is try to practice it before the problem begins, so you know what you're going to do. So when you close your eyes, they don't for a moment think, oh God, they've fainted. All right. So just say, what I usually do is I just sit for a moment, I close my eyes, just stop shaking me and annoying me and telling me to calm down. And we all know it, the famous phrase of, are you all right? And you're going, oh, I'll tell you in a moment, just as soon as I can actually get my breath back. So this is it. It's a little hard card. Please take one. Carer, family member, whatever it is, or as I say, person with pulmonary fibrosis. Put it in your thing, and every so often remind yourself of it, so it's ready to go when you want it. So what about the whole breathlessness thing? We all get breathless. We have to. It's how we get more fuel into the system. So don't fear breathlessness, because you're going to manage it. But know how much when you're doing exercise, and the question of exercise came up. Do I take a fast belt at it, do it for about 60 seconds and stop suddenly, gasp for about 10 minutes, start again? Okay, it's much better. Go like hell, stop. Go like hell, stop. Doesn't do anything for you. You're better off. This is a bit like looking now, we won't see today too much, but if you look out on a Tuesday or Thursday night at a football pitch, okay, and you see these guys, they've arrived and they're here plodding around the football pitch, and round, they're going. I follow football, and if the team was plodding around like that in the middle of a match, I'd skin them. But I do want them doing that kind of training, that endurance training where it's warm up and they're going to be able to keep going for 45 minutes each way. All right. So you need to look at, you're not looking at the performance level of a sports person. What you're looking for is you need endurance, enough to get you through the day for all the things you have to do. So you're going to pitch your activity, be it walking, be it an exercise bike, be it whatever you're doing, at a certain level where you are moderately breathless. And we all know where it is. We all know it's kind of that sweet spot. It's that bit, I think in Ireland we use our second wind bit. I could go on, once I got my second wind, I could go forever. And we all take off and do things and we go, oh, for God's sake, that's, and slow back. All right? So when you actually do it, and you need to try it out, and I would like you to try it, even when you're walking from here in a more covered surroundings to the front door. Too fast, too slow. On the bike, too fast, too slow. Just until you get that point and think, and different thing, you will never overdo it if you do that. Because on a good day, you will go quicker. On a day that you're not as good, you won't. You'll go a little slower. So you're going to meter your energies and your abilities to what you're managing on the day. So it's very simple. It's got a posh name. It's called the Borg scale of breathlessness. The moments when you see simple things, maybe that's what genius is about, making things look simple, whereas the rest of us could have sat around for years thinking up something. But moderate breathlessness. And some people say, well, what is moderate breathlessness? You'll know it. Try it. Don't let anybody else dictate it. This is not pulse levels. This is not anything like that. This is just your breathlessness, your own perceived breathlessness. Now the fans. The men are going, oh Lord, we're going to turn into Japanese watt dancers. Now, oddly enough, there's science behind this. There's actually information out there, and oddly enough, when I think about it, it actually comes from the Orient, a lot of it, in the early stages. But I'm not telling you it's a perfect science. I'm not telling you it's fully investigated. But what I will say to you is that a lot of people say to you, oh, just let a bit of air in. That's not oxygen. That's a little bit of air movement. When you get very breathless, you need to find space, air, something that's moving across your face. And it's not heat, it's movement of air. There's a certain school of thought where the feedback is that if we apply moving air to around these areas of our face, that it actually calms the breathing. The problem with lung fibrosis is the onset can be a lot quicker than many other chronic chest diseases. If you talk to COPD patients, you are not talking COPD here, but if you're talking to patients with chronic obstructive airway disease, which goes on and has been around for years in people with people's conditions, and I don't mean around as in society, but people have extensively for years and years and years, and eventually die of old age, I have to say. But the whole thing is, they are people who invariably, when I go to see them in a room, they've brought in their fan. In a hospital room, they would have brought in their fan. At home, I have a fan. So they've clicked something, but they've had a length of time to learn to manage their symptoms. Whereas when you have something like lung fibrosis, the onset's much quicker, and you haven't learnt all these managing techniques. But these fans, and applying the fan, different people find it different places, maybe under the nose, around the centre part of the face, or around here to the side of the face, actually gives this calming sensation, and for many can be a huge help. Now, we all know that fans come in different kinds, and I don't expect you to flick out your operatic fan and start in the middle of the street. Okay, we all like to be maybe a little quieter about doing things. You can pick up something like this, and you can fan yourself wildly, but this is work. So we're kind of adding to the whole situation. So what we actually have are very small fans that will actually connect onto your little pocket, your bunch of keys, something like that. They run on a little battery. Just press the button, key, just let it sit under the chin, under the nose. Try it out. It might be magic for some, and you can all go home and say, what a load of cobblers she's just told me there. On others, but try it. Please do try it. Now, the good bit is, like the late, there is one for everybody in the audience. Okay, but what I would ask also is that if you are taking a fan, would you be good enough to take the questionnaire? Because we need to know what does and what doesn't work. And ILFA have fans there. They're tiny, they're little, they're really dinky, but please do try them. But sort of, as I say, in return for that, we would be extremely grateful if you just fill out a very simple questionnaire. It gives us some insights into what we can, what does work, what some people find works, and what they might suggest as well. Now, let's go to the drug that is as old as time itself. All right, and there's others sitting there going, well, man, talk to me about pirfenidone, you talk to me about nintedanib, and nobody's told me about this one. And it's that dreaded word which people kind of go, and I know there was a question there which is probably driven by that dreaded word, oxygen. They told me oxygen would help. I'm not taking oxygen. I've seen that oxygen stuff. I'm not running around with those things up my nose. Except, and what good is it going to do me anyway? Okay, where am I going to get it? Is it going to be expensive? Who do I have to ask about it? You can never get anything. Our house never gets anything for nothing. No, can't apply. So the whole idea is oxygen. It's been around forever. It's a very addictive drug, and it is a drug because in hospitals it's prescribed. Out of hospital, it must be prescribed. And it is totally addictive because in the moment we were born, we took a great big deep breath. And from that moment, we are addicted. Deprive us of oxygen and we suffer. So in the room you're sitting in, there is 21% of oxygen, which is grand in the old Irish vernacular. But for some of you, once you start to move, the breathlessness sets in. And the way we can manage that for those that are suited for it is by increasing the concentration of oxygen around them. So for the rest of us, if we just breathe faster, the oxygen can be drawn better into our bodies and we can use it. When you've got that scarring and you can't get enough of that oxygen across, just make stronger levels of oxygen in the body. So how do you do that? You give a higher oxygen concentration and you actually give somebody oxygen in some shape or form. For those of you who are wondering about all of these wondrous machines on the back wall here, that's every single one of them produce oxygen. They produce oxygen that goes on holidays with you, that walks around behind you, that unfortunately will not come all by itself through a whistle. It'll give you oxygen in the home, it'll give you oxygen wherever you are in your mobile home, but it will give you oxygen. Now, all the questions that kind of come up about oxygen, apart from the fact that the first reaction out of a lot of people is, this is a disaster. I'm getting worse. But the actual fact is, a little bit like the whole idea that we're talking about the increase in lung fibrosis in Ireland, it's actually not necessarily an increase, as we said, it's probably better diagnosis. When somebody suggests oxygen to you, maybe they have taken the time to listen to you, to realise that this is something you need when somebody hasn't had or you haven't been to somebody to take the time. So therefore, it is a wondrous addition and should be something that will certainly extend your ability to get washed and get dressed, go places, exercise, and do what you want to do in a heck of a lot more comfort. Now, I'm not going to blackmail you and tell you that if you don't use it, your body will all fall apart and your heart will suffer, etc., etc. But the difference between being able to be active and not being able to be active could be an oxygen supply. So from a point of view, look upon it positively as being something that, thank God, is available and could make a huge change to your life. The queries that come up, when should it begin? Now, your doc's going to decide that, but no doctor's going to suddenly come up with it unless you go. And unfortunately, sometimes people do things like take oxygen levels when you're sitting there looking at them. And you've preened yourself and pulled yourself together, so I'm not going to the doctor now coughing and spluttering and puffing. I just organise myself, sit down, and now I'm ready. But unfortunately then, when we do go to take certain tests, certain people who have not got the insight will go, sure, his oxygen's grand. But the wife is sitting there, or the husband is sitting there saying, you haven't seen him coming in from the car. He's dreadful. You haven't seen him go down the yard. He's terrible. So the whole thing is, when should it begin? It's a combination of you knowing there's something out there that might be an option and suggesting as well, and the doctor, when he's taken blood tests or SAT monitor, as you heard our previous speaker say, may decide it's something for you. Okay, who's going to organise it? The usual story. Who's going to fix this? The usual story is, if it's in hospital, it is a drug, it must be prescribed by your doctor. It may be that you're assessed by the practitioner, the nurse practitioner, the physiotherapist, or whoever else it is, but the doctor in the end is the person who signs the bottom of the form. Okay? It will be organised, it will be a prescription, they will decide whether you need it for just moving around the place. And I'm going to refer to the fact that just for mobility, but in my book, when you put your 2 feet in the floor and get out of your bed and go to the bathroom to get washed and dressed, that's mobility to me, so you need it in your house. Because the air inside your house is no different than the one outside the front door. So the logic of that always escapes me when somebody says, oh, I just have it for mobility. That's crazy. So make sure that if you're getting it just for mobility, in your head you're going, well, what am I supposed to do around the house when I'm doing my chores and doing, God forbid, the hoovering or the ironing or something like that, but just the things that you need to know. What am I going to do when I'm sort of driving? All of these things. So do in your head, have a good think about this. Just don't say, no, I'm not having it. No, not another thing. I'm not going around looking weird. The fellas in the golf club are going to ask me. The women are going to say, what's that on your face? I've got a wedding coming up and I'd look ridiculous. All of these things. What form should it take? I would encourage you all to look at those 2 stands over there. It comes in so many different forms, and every one of them may suit, some may suit, and some may not suit your lifestyle. But we'll have a little look at it now in a moment. And when should you use it? Whenever you think you get breathless, if that's what the reason has been for its prescription. What makes you breathless? You stop and ask. Would oxygen help? In your head you ask. So therefore, that's when you should use it. Okay? How much you use or how little you use, you discuss with your medical practitioner. Oxygen, if you take too much of that, it'll poison you. That's another phrase. Which is perfectly correct for certain conditions. And for other conditions, I have patients around 15 litres of oxygen. and it's not poisoning them. It's making their life a heck of a lot easier. So do remember, this is a very good option. It will take the fear and the panic out of doing many things. Some people may feel they only need it when they're doing heavy work. And when they sit down in the car to go from A to B, that they feel, I don't need it. So that's what you do. You turn it down. You turn it on. Watching TV, I don't need it. But for certain chores and doing things and working, this is something you might need. Okay. Prescription, your doctor will advise. But be active in that discussion. And that person sitting beside you nudging, going, did you not tell the doctor? Did you not tell the doctor? Did you not? Maybe bring them with you that time. They do blood tests. They might check oxygen levels. They might do a 6-minute walk test, the infamous 6-minute. And just, as I say, when to use it. When you're advised, but then prompt to say, but when I'm in the shower, it's not the hairdryer you're bringing into the shower. It's oxygen. It's not going to electrocute you. You can sit in the bath on oxygen. Think of it. Some people just dread the idea of getting in, trying to dry themselves and get in and out of the shower. And it comes, as you can see over there, and as you can see from anything from on your back, mind you, telling you you've got a breathing problem and you get breathless and then giving you a sack of potato for hanging on your back is not necessarily the way to do it, but you can have wheels, as you can see over there. Some of them come on wheels, like little Ryanair cabin bags. And as I say, the blue one over there is the blue one over there. I can't believe I matched all of them up, that's really good. But the fact is, that's for home. You get lengths of meters, so you're not going to be pulling it around the house. It's going to sit in one place and you're going to be able to use it around the house. There are naturally things like you do not light your cigarette while it's up your nose. Oxygen does not explode. We know that. It doesn't explode, but anything that burns will burn an awful lot more brightly in its presence. Too brightly. Okay, so that is the one thing that has to be carefully watched. Our propensity for candles, we all love our candles at this stage, but just there are basic safety rules. But please entertain the discussion and don't just discard it, because it will be a domestic row at home when you go home and they already still know that you're breathless and you told the doctor you didn't need it. All right, it'll be all picture and no sound for about a week afterwards. Let me see if I put it now. So therefore, listen to your professionals. We don't throw out oxygen nowhere. Ensure that if you have it, you're using it, turning it up when you should, turning it down if you don't need it. Use it when you're active, because that's when you need the foot on the pedal and need the fuel. And you can't change that by your breathing faster, because your lungs aren't going to manage it. During exercise, as I say, that's the level you may need it. Look at the different options, all of these wondrous options, and ask for help, for plans, for family dues, for weddings down the country, for christenings, for holidays, whatever else it is. Any of those special days, talk to your oxygen company and see what there is. So my plan is, don't count the days, but make the days count. And these are things that I've been asked about on regular days. Muhammad Ali, my favourite being, I have to say, it was one of his rules was, every day is every day, and just take it each day as comes. I get asked about holidays all the time, okay? And can I go on holidays? I know what happened to the diocesan pilgrimage from Dublin, but anyway, it used to be September and I got invariable questions about getting the oxygen for the pilgrimage to Lourdes. And it just seems to have settled a little more. Maybe we've all just lost the religious bit of us, but people going to Lourdes needed their oxygen, so they used to get a change of oxygen supply. Okay, so the more portable systems that are aircraft friendly were allowed. Yes, holidays. There are 3 Ps. 3 Ps. Permission. Don't plan anything without talking to your doctor. Yes, of course you'd like to go climb Kilimanjaro. Go talk to the doctor, for goodness sake, before you get in any aeroplane, boat or otherwise, and say, I am planning to do. Is it a doable? The family are having, is it a doable? And don't say, oh, no. Discuss it. Give them a clear picture of what you're doing. Okay, permission. Don't snook off, disappear off to watch the lights in the Arctic Circle and then tell them that funny there was no lights, just my face turning blue, green and purple in the lack of air and oxygen with no plans, okay? No, make, as I say, an honest fess up say, we're going to go on holidays. It may not be away. It may just be down to Kerry for a long weekend. How am I going to manage this with my oxygen? Do I bring it with me? Does it follow me? Will it know like Santa Claus where I am? No. Talk to the doctor, get permission, take their advice. And he's not the big bad wolf if he says, look, so-and-so, I really think you shouldn't fly. Okay, there's more than one way to skin a cat. You'll get there another way, all right? But do be honest, he's not doing it to be mean. He's doing it because he knows it may not be safe, that if you fly, your oxygens may not manage the altitude and the pressure changes within a plane. And we all know we don't want dreadful things happening, okay, that far up. Altitude, very simple thought. In an aeroplane, oxygen is 17%. 15 to 17%. This room, your normal room air, is 21%. Oxygen is a very difficult and expensive item to produce in an aeroplane. So 15% will soon, and 17% will, you'll soon find out if you've got breathing problems. Let's be practical, okay? So you want to go across the Sahara Desert on a camel. You'll be seasick. I'm telling you now, you'll be seasick, and the sand gets everywhere. And it doesn't come with a plug, all right? So therefore, be practical. Is it something that's doable? All right? And discuss it. And don't just do it out of pig iron. Think about the tours you might be going on. Are they all vertical climbs and steps? Are they something that's... Don't go and waste money before you've actually looked at it. If you're going to a hotel, where is it? Is it somewhere you can actually get proper bookings and proper rooms? Plan. Be organised. If it's a wedding next September, know where you're going. Ring the hotel. Ask for an access room. That's the one that's closest to the lobby and has nice things like seats in the shower. Make sure, if it's something you're going to, could I be at a table where there might be a plug because I'm bringing my... Talk to your oxygen company. They may say, bring one of them and not the things with the cylinders, and just get a new prescription. Medical card people, you can just get what's called holiday oxygen. All right? People can go on cruises with oxygen. Okay? And as the oxygen company said to me, there are 2 worldwide oxygen companies, and both companies there use them, and you can use them for holiday oxygen. And they will meet you. And remember, cruise ships don't leave the ground, and they come into Dublin to begin. You don't have to fly to get there. But just check, and check again, so there's not a great big sweat and everybody's killing each other before you all go on holidays. No fun there at all. Okay, so plan. Now, when I go for my walk, I listen to podcasts. And it's an unusual thing to say, but say, I came from very honest parents. And I'm going, haven't heard anybody yet say, well, my father was an absolute liar and my mother said dreadful. Well, I came from very honest parents too, particularly as a daughter, a very honest mother, who used to look witheringly at me every so often and say, well, you better study because you're never going to be a ballet dancer. And you certainly aren't going to be a jockey. So just get down and knuckle up there. And I'd say, unfortunately, I felt like saying I too have a mirror mother, I know. All right. So the old ballet dancer, I never liked the netty bit, and I didn't have the legs for the tutu. Okay. And we all have things we know we can't, well, quite do the way we want to do them. All right. But just because I can't be in Swan Lake and flap my wings, it doesn't mean that I can't dance. And I can dance wherever and whatever I want to do. Now, if you want to, go do things, exercise, holidays, family dues, whatever it is. Sit down, have a think. Because it may not be Swan Lake, and maybe more like the dance of the baby elephants, but it's still going to be a dance. And as I said, Muhammad Ali said, don't be counting the days. Make those days count and stop planning. Life happens when you're planning. Just get planning, get organising. And please, 1, get your fan, and number 2, get all of that information on exercise as well. And that's it.